Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Mondays in MMORPGs. My name is Tim Anderson, aka Renfail. Welcome back. Tonight's topic, we're going to be talking about crowdfunding tonight, which is going to be fun. I'm joined by these two lovely guests. I'll let you do your introductions here.
I'm Jesse, aka Scribbles, and I am one of the founding members of Ninja Loot Games, working on a game called Defend the Night. It's MMORPG. I'm just here to talk about my experiences with development.
And I'm Judah. I'm part of CookieDragon Games. I'm working on my own MMORPG called TwoKinds Online. You can find us on Discord and Twitter, and wishlist us on Steam.
Etc., etc. All right, well, before we get going tonight, what have you guys been up to the last couple of week or so? Have there been holidays recently? I don't know, because I lived in Mexico.
There's been a few, and more coming.
The big one
Been,
is the
Next
4th of
it's been
week.
July.
hot
So
though.
Yeah, it's coming up.
that's coming up.
I've been starting to play Albion Online tablet.
Yeah.
Like it caught me somehow. I've been trying it for these last few years, and it just finally got me.
That's a good one because that is the last successful crowdfunding game that Kickstarter had for MMORPGs that in Unity that I can actually say that is a success and people actually play the hell out of it. So kudos
Was
to those
it
guys.
it was Kickstarted, wasn't it?
Yes.
What year?
Uh, I'm gonna say it was 2016.
It's called Albion Online.
Yeah, I feel like
2015 or
15 maybe.
15 or 16.
It's been
Close enough.
it's been around for a
Um,
while. I tried it back in 2017,
Mm.
and yeah, I just played it for an hour and then haven't touched it until now.
I'm
Mm.
really curious now. Founder packs. Dun, 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 dun. I'm not finding on the wiki anyway when was the Kickstarter.
I'm gonna look it up
Yeah,
myself.
I'm googling it right now and I'm not. Oh, here it is. Albion's. Was it called Albion's? No, that's not it. Albion's Legacy. Was it called something different beforehand? Because I'm not finding anything for Albion Online Kickstarter.
There. Oh.
It's interesting. It's not Albion's Legacy.
No, so there's some stuff from 2017 that says Albion Online raised almost 10 million, officially launches today. That's
It's
the
not. It's probably not on Kickstarter anymore. But yeah, it's
well, I
successfully.
was thinking they were always I thought they were always there cataloged. Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it should
that's
be cataloged.
yeah, because I thought they were always there, but I'm not finding anything for it, so that's interesting. So, but that article
Mm,
you just linked, that's the one I was looking at too, is from 2017. But I'm seeing
yeah.
founder
Well,
packs.
it was there because I remember watching it. But and it's in the wiki too. If you look up Albion Online wiki, it says it was kickstarted. So, uh, it's definitely it's
I see
definitely one of
mention in the
those.
wiki of founder packs 2015, so let's just say
Yeah.
2015.
2015. Yeah.
That sounds
But
right.
yeah, but they just recently sold, so that's probably one of the things that they wanted off the listing. So that could happen. But yeah, as for me, I just got back from I could hear myself talking in the background, so I don't know if anybody has your volume on. But I was at a retirement party this weekend. Did that, and that was real fun. It was a Air Force guy that retired after 20 years of duty. So that was real cool. And then I've been doing a lot of shader programming. You guys into shaders in Unity? I just
I
started a
know
lot
about
of
it.
I just started a lot of shader work. So that's I'm getting intense with that. And on the side, I've been working. I did a master class in some Lua scripting. So that's some boring stuff, but uh, I enjoy that, and I like the scripting language. And I thought it was Beast. I thought it was Beast mode in Lua, but I took this class and they showed me a lot. They schooled me. So now I'm a god, but I was a beast. But yeah, that's what I've been up to. I also been playing Core. It's a thing that you can find on Unity Game Store, or not Unity, Epic Game Store. It's where you can make games like Roblox. It's kind of like the similar thing, and they script in Lua too, so it goes hand in hand. So some of the side stuff I've been doing. But yeah, I mean, so tonight is about crowdfunding, right? So
Getting
Yes.
there.
it's a perfect segue to I'll be online. What they did, they did a great Kickstarter. If you ever it's probably on YouTube if you ever want to watch that. Yeah, I guarantee it's on YouTube. Their pitch, and that's the way you do it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with them at all.
Mm.
Like it's
Uh,
it's it's one of those games that never got my attention. I know the name of it and I
mhm.
see their Facebook ads all the time, but I've
Yeah.
never been compelled to play it.
So so when they did the Kickstarter, they had the founding members that were working on it. They could showcase a game that was working. They could actually show that they had a product, and they actually spent lots of money in the marketing too, as well. They had a crew there at a like medieval, castle, doing the interviews with the developers. So they spent a bunch of money on it, and they did a lot of good marketing moves. So they probably had hired help to do that. That's one of the things that is in these Kickstarters. I see that people don't do. They just think that they're just going to get funded without that knowledge of marketing.
With an I well, not just without any marketing, they also think that they can do it on ideas. I actually read it was purely by chance. There was an article on Gama Sutra that I read this morning that tied into this a little bit because it was about pitching, how to pitch to publishers, and one of several of the things that they were talking about in what you need to have if you're seriously going to be pitching to a company is a working prototype, unless you have reputation behind you. And if you're a nobody who's never developed a game before, you're not going to have any reputation behind you because you've not done anything. So you have to wait. However, you have to get to that point, you have to have a working prototype to be able to pitch realistically to a publisher because no publisher is going to give you even 2 seconds of their time if you don't have something to show them. And that's something that I've often said this over the years about Kickstarters, not just for MMORPGs, but just crowdfunded games and or projects in particular. If you don't have some sort of a prototype that you're showcasing in that pitch, because it's essentially what you're doing with Kickstarter, is you're pitching people on your thing. It's just you're almost dead in the water because the brilliant thing about the Gama Sutra article today was ideas are cheap. Anybody can have an idea, and I love that because I've always said, a monkey can have an idea. Anybody can have an idea. It's not Ideas are not unique. They're not anything special. That's why anytime you see a company that's hiring, they're not hiring idea people. They're hiring programmers. They're hiring artists. They're hiring doers, not thinkers, because they've already come up with the idea. They need people to put that idea into working order. So the idea thing's always been one of those jokes for me when I look at crowdfunding or a Kickstarter game, and all it is an idea with some concept art. It's like, yep, nope, no thanks. Not even you don't even pass the
Mhm.
radar check for me at that point.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we're even at the point where a lot of people have been burned by back Kickstarters early on. So
Mm.
now the people that are going to be backing, they want to see that prototype. They want to see the good art. They want to see, they essentially want to see the marketing. Make sure that it's not just an idea.
Marketing's essential. It's also so my day job right now. What we're doing in the middle. I'm in the middle of right now with our day job. We're recording this on the 29th of June. Um, so like we just announced a speaker series last week, basically, last weekend, and we've got this amazing array of speakers that are going to be speaking once a month at these virtual events. And I mean, we've got these people who are um, at the peak of their game in terms of National Geographic photographers, videographers. We've got some ABC correspondents. We've got some NASA engineers. I mean, there's all these people that are coming together for this speaker event, and they're we've talked to some people who have speaker fees of $50,000. It's like it's a big thing that we're doing, and all of this is the culmination of basically 6 months of prep work. And I can't say how much money because that's out of my what I'm allowed to talk about. But I can say that in terms of the money that's been put into it, the amount of work that's put into it, when I say 6 months of work plus all this money, that is a fraction of the total amount of what's going on, because that marketing component is just one small thing in this giant wheel of things that are going on for that particular product, which is it's a magazine with a lot of different components going on to it. And when you look at a game, it's no different in the sense that we have. I'm using that as a reference because that's the thing I'm working on right now, and then looking at stuff with the games that I've worked on. Um, Marketing might only make up. It depends on the product, but a good marketing program can take up half of your overall budget and time. And that's not a bad thing if there's a product to back it up. But there has to be a product to back it up because you need something to sell to people. You can't just sell them on an idea. You might be able to pitch some investors on ideas, but it's hard. It's really hard. Having pitched to a lot of people and signed a bunch of investors and heard no a lot of times over the years, um, you really have to have something concrete, because an idea doesn't get you very, very far past the door.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing is essential. And also, I think doing unique things with marketing and not just doing the standard. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there are standard things you can do these days. I think it used to be, get YouTubers to talk about your games. That was 2000s. 2010. Now we're 2020. Everybody wants to work with influencers, and that's good. But you have to have influencers who know how to actually create content around your game and aren't just going to get on the stream and say, "Look at this cool game," because no one cares about someone saying, "Oh, this is a cool game." What you want cosplayers, you want role players, you want people who are going to invest into creating characters in your game and to get excited enough about your game that they want to play those characters and do voiceovers on the stream. And cosplay would be the big thing for me. People who actually want to take it to the level that they're going to cosplay your characters. That kind of stuff to me is when you see people getting excited about the product. That goes beyond just showing a quirky little game trailer and some graphics, because that's anybody can
Yeah,
put a screenshot up. You know.
yeah. The way I look at it is, uh, for me to want to actually support anything, I have to be able to play it. I mean, especially MMORPGs, I have to be able to play it. So there has to be like some kind of game loop. I have to be immersed in the storyline. I have to have the lore that's going to back it up as well. I got to actually want to be in the game. I have to have the look that makes me want to look like that character, or it has to be attractive to me. And it has to be something that's fun, something that I actually don't get anywhere else. So if it's too much like another game, then that I tend not to go to it because that's just like that other game. So it's
What
real hard. It's real hard to narrow that down
what was
to
the
what I'm
name
going
of
to support.
that? It was like a World of Warcraft clone, but it was like a sci-fi game, and it got shut down a few years back.
Was it like Godfall or something like that?
No,
Wildstar.
WildStar. That's the one.
Oh yeah, WildStar.
One of the reasons I never felt compelled to want to play that game was because I looked at it and immediately said, "Oh, it's Warcraft in space. I have zero desire to play Warcraft. Why would I want to play this game?"
Hmm.
Um,
And a lot of developers fell into that
I
same pendulum.
I loved the
Yeah.
theming for it, but yeah, the gameplay just wasn't getting me
Mhm.
for whatever reason.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But right now, I'm getting to the point where I don't believe anything. I mean, with scams that came out with Dream World, I don't know if you guys got it's just a guy that promised the world, and he said he could have, a million players in one instance, playing around you. Just some outlandish
Talk about
prom.
outliers for Kickstarter
Mm.
crowdfunding. It's like they sold everybody on the idea.
Well, yeah, and
But like
in the grand scope of things, they only raised 60 grand. But
yeah.
the fact that there was enough gullible people out there to give them $60,000 is somewhat concerning, um,
Mm,
because it does show the naivete of the general public when it comes to what is or isn't a realistic MMORPG. Um, I think there's people who are so hungry for anything, something, anything. They just want something new. They're tired. There hasn't been a really big MMORPG in a long time, and so they're all starved for something new and different and unique. And they're so
mm,
starved and desperate that they're willing to throw money at
mhm,
stupid stuff,
mhm,
without, and there's pros and cons to that. On the one hand, it's like you can look at this and say, well, if they've got the disposable income to throw, $40 here, $40 here, $50 here, 50 bucks, we'll let them, let people do that. But at the same time, it does make it infinitely more difficult for people who are legitimately trying to build a good product to be drugged down by really poor Kickstarters and or controversies and scams that do ruin it for everybody else. And I know the big one everybody always likes to talk about is Chronicles of Illyria, because that was like a high profile project that fell apart and is trying desperately to avoid going to jail for the rest of his life, by creating a different product just so that he could say that he's given something to his backers.
mhm,
There's that, and then we have more recently we have Dreamworld. There's other games which I can't mention by name for various legal reasons, but there are products that are rebranding recently where they sold people a product on under a specific name and a specific IP, and then they did a bait and switch, and oh no, now we're gonna be releasing this other product. That kind of stuff, those different types of scams and poor business decisions, do ruin it for the legitimate people who are trying to make it and who actually have something to offer and have something unique to bring to the table. It makes it very, very difficult for those products to see the light of day. Especially when you look at cases like Chronicles of Illyria, where you've got a class action lawsuit going on, and there's some
mhm,
serious repercussions there, which are the result of just poor financial management. It may not have been a scam per se, but I think there's a lot of just poor
yeah.
management at play there, which I think
Mhm,
does tie into part of the issue with crowdfunding games, is a lot of these projects that people are crowdfunding and putting their money towards. The people who are running these projects have no business experience and are not fit to be managing large sums of money. Um,
mhm,
and that's very tricky. I
mhm,
think that's also why it's easy to look at, I think for me anyway, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but there's a lot to me in terms of if I can see someone's track record. I've often said that you give me ten minutes with someone's name, and I'll tell you if they're a legitimate individual or not. Because it doesn't take more than 10 minutes to find information about someone on the internet these days, whether it's through LinkedIn, so on and so forth. A few phone calls is all it takes, and suddenly you've got all you need to know about whether that person is a reliable, trustworthy employee, etc. And that can go a long way towards the legitimacy of a crowdfunding effort if that person has a legitimate track record in any type of business. But if all they've
mhm,
ever done is been an employee for someone, and then they're trying to come out and say, well, yeah, we're going to head this multi-million dollar project that's going to create this amazing, groundbreaking, industry revolutionizing MMORPG, but they haven't necessarily ever done anything other than been an employee. Show me
mhm,
that you can do it. Show me the prototype. Show me that you can actually make it happen, and then we'll talk business. I think that's my take on things.
mhm. Right. I'm totally in. There was a Kickstarter that failed not too long ago, maybe a year ago. It was a program or some people that got together from Australia that named their game Titan Reach, and they did a
Is that mechs or something?
no no no
Why does
no
that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Titan. Well, there's Titan something else. Titanfall. It's a different game, but Titan Reach was a pretty much a uh, an old school RuneScape type of game, but with modern uh,
Hmm.
graphics. And
Okay.
what they did is they got Lazy Peon um, to actually get note of the game, and their Discord just blew up. Lazy Peon did a video about it, um, so that was a big marketing campaign. But once you catch one of those big streamers, your fuse is lit. So whatever you have to go pretty soon. When you have all that clout and all that backing. So they went to Kickstarter, I think, too early, and it kind of uh, put them in a little bind. And I think their packages weren't set up right with their crowdfunding, and they had a little bit of hard time to raise that. I think it was their Kickstarter was set at like 130 grand, something along those lines, something close to that. And they didn't end up reaching it. But the cool thing about that is they actually went to crowdfunding later because they got pretty close. They went to crowdfunding on their own, and they ended up being able to fund the game more. So they're on their way to an alpha. But that's one of the ones. That's one of the ways that you see these failures, and then they can actually rise from the dust, so to speak, and actually attempt to do good work after the failures.
On their
So I
website, it
think.
shows they've got 15 people on their team, and everything looks like
Mm,
it's all their social media is active, all
mm,
their posts are
mm,
active.
That's
So
that's good. Wow.
yeah, it looks
yeah,
like they
So
did.
they just rushed it.
Yeah, they
yeah,
managed
That's
to pull it together. Yeah.
that's the thing
yeah.
with the Kickstarters and why I
Mm,
haven't. One of the reasons why I wouldn't want to run one is that it takes months of prep beforehand, and then each
mm,
day it's only 30 days, but you have to have like your whole marketing
mm,
set up for each day. Is like you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this,
And you don't
and then
sleep those 30
that organized.
days.
No, no, you can't sleep because you gotta hit those beats.
mm,
And especially because if you hit 60% within I think the first 48 hours, you'll get that oh so treasured project we love tag on
Mm-hmm.
Kickstarter, which then promotes you even higher on their list of things.
yeah.
Um,
I don't trust Kickstarter for as much as I can throw in
How
my.
how much is their take? Kickstarter's take, is it 20% or 30,
It's I thought it was
or is it
just really
lower?
low. I thought it was really low, like 5%.
no, it's really low.
It's considerable, isn't it? I don't remember.
5%. I think it's 5%. Pretty sure it's 5. But anyways, the way I don't really trust it too much is because there's no checks and balances. They give you that money right now. You don't have to
5%.
work for anything. Yes, 5%. You don't have to work for anything uh, to get that money, like in spurts. There's no one controlling that money just to protect you from wasting it or wasting time. Uh, it is just all given you. That's it. You get it all, other than the prices the 5% that you sign up Kickstarter. I think the better way to do something like this would be to get a reputable site like maybe fig.co, which is a kind of like a crowdfunding slash investment. People can invest in your product and actually get get some kickback from investing in your company. So I think that's better if you want to be an angel investor or sorry, a venture capitalist and be treated like one um, with your money that you support one of these companies that are developing a game that you think is awesome. You could actually be the VC for that company and actually invest in them and get a little royalties or kickbacks from that aspect. And what they do is they do Fig.io does the marketing with you, uh, so you could actually have a professional marketing system in place when you're doing Kickstarter, which Kickstarter doesn't have, or when you're crowdfunding, I should say, which Kickstarter doesn't have. And the thing that they do is they have milestones that they give you, so they keep you on track. Uh,
Which I would like to point
it's
out that the
huge.
reason the reason they do it that way is because the people who founded Fig are all from the traditional publishing world,
Mm,
and so they've all done games before, and they
mm,
understand the importance of milestones and accountability when it comes to
mm,
payment, because that's one of the biggest issues with any sort of Kickstarter or Indiegogo project is that initial
yes.
fund that you get. And I've talked about this in my, yeah, the your eyes get all big. You're like, oh my god, we got all this money, and then feature creep goes, and the next thing you
Mhm,
know, you're out of money. And I talked about this in the Diary of an Indie Game Dev episodes multiple times. You've got issues with people who have no experience doing project management, who don't factor in things like all the legal fees, all of the licensing fees, shipping costs, warehousing costs, manufacturing costs, labor
mm,
costs, taxes, accountant, lawyer, all of these things that add up. Somebody did a breakdown the other day. I was reading they were doing a Kickstarter, and I was actually pleasantly surprised that they just took 40% off the top of their
mm,
Kickstarter and said, this is going towards shipping, processing fees, PayPal's fee, licensing, all this stuff. It's 40% off the top goes to that. Then they had 60% left, and they said it was basically a 50-50 split of we're doing about 30% into the marketing and about 30% into the actual design and development of things. That to me was the sign of a professional Kickstarter because they had actually done the math and had people who had done this before and were able to look at that project and go, okay, this is actually going to be the costs of all this stuff because a lot of these projects they go in and they get this. Let's say they get $500,000 and they all think, oh my God, we can all quit our jobs and let's say there's 10 people and they're like we can quit our jobs and we could do this. Well, guess what? 10 people drawing $50,000 a year, which is a fairly modest wage uh, for a startup, you know, game developer, you know, 35 to 40 would be a little more realistic, but they all want to take a $50,000 salary. You've just burned your whole year. One whole year is gone in one fell swoop, and you haven't even taken care of your taxes, your warehousing, your licensing, your accountant, your all those things. You're just like, oh my God, we can all quit our jobs, and it's like we only have enough money for a year. Where do you think? How do you think that that's
Is
gonna
yeah,
work?
is the plan to finish in that year,
Yeah, I don't think
or
most
is that
people
yeah?
understand
So
that.
yeah, that's the thing. It's like a lot. So coming from like the indie side, a lot of indies don't know marketing and a lot of them don't know business. They just want to make the game. And so you put you have people like that doing a Kickstarter and then also they have all these funds, but not the right way, not knowing how to manage it, which is why we see so many projects fall over
mm,
and just die.
Crash and burn. Um,
Hmm.
this came up too recently. I can't remember where the conversation was, but when you look at traditional like I've been doing since what I'm working on right now with my brother and my wife is on a small scale. I'm not doing an MMORPG anymore, so we're not dealing with a $12 million project anymore. It's a much smaller scope. Um, so you look at most of the Kickstarters for say a little 2 to 3 man point and click adventure game or a little uh, tabletop campaign. These people are shooting for $20,000, $30,000. And when you look at those numbers, what that means is that they're planning to provide a product for around 500 people. That is a very modest product. 500 people, 500 sales. That's something that 2 or 3 people can easily manage, even in a part time capacity, because we're not talking thousands of customers at this point. We're talking a few hundred customers. And even when you see these products crush it, like I see a lot of these tabletop campaigns in particular, where they'll launch for $20,000, they get, like Grim Hollow is a good one I like to look at. Their first one is 250,000, and their next one's like 750,000, and then the third one was like I think 400,000 or something. But they had garnished a reputation for delivering um, from that first one that they did. So their first one was like a quarter million, and their second one was like 3 times that. And the reason was because they did such a good job of delivering on their promises in the first one that they went ahead and did that for the second one. But what I often see with MMORPGs in particular is you see a bunch of idea people who come together and they will put some ridiculously low amount. There was a recent I might fudge the name. I think it was called Project Steel, maybe is what it was called a few months back. They did 2 Kickstarters. The first one they only did like $10,000, and everyone laughed them out the door and said that's ridiculous. No one's gonna be able to complete a $10,000 or an MMORPG for $10,000. And their response was, well, the people we consulted said that we should do 10,000 because it would allow us to hit our goals. And it's like, what goals? What are you gonna do with $10,000? So then they came back with a Kickstarter that was for I don't really remember, a couple $100,000, and but still didn't hit anywhere close to their goals, because they were pitching ideas as opposed to they didn't have a working prototype. It was literally just screenshots and ideas. But what I want to point out though is that no MMORPG in the history of MMORPGs has ever been built for $250,000. Ever. It's millions of dollars on the low end for even the most modest of games. I think even like Shroud of the Avatar was $12 million, and had a team of 30 plus by the time they launched. That's not to say that a team of 5 or 10 people can't build an MMORPG in their spare time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've been through all of this, but when you factor in the numbers for what those people would be making for salaries, you still end up with a product by the time it launches that is worth anywhere from say $8 to $10 million on the low end
Yeah.
because of the amount of time and effort and hours that go into creating an MMORPG. You can't
Yeah,
do an MMORPG for $250,000.
yeah, it's either that or sweat equity, and there's a lot of people that aren't getting paid, that do it for a long time. That so that factors in. If I say defend the night, we haven't spent a lot of money, but with those people that we work, they work relentlessly on sweat equity. So
And
uh,
you're staying small just
yeah,
while
stand
you're
small.
in pre-production,
Mm.
getting ready.
Y- You have to live within your means. So we develop at night. We go to our day jobs. We develop at night, and just try to make that game successful as we go along. We're not trying to milk our audience like a lot of these games do. I understand why they do. They want to get their development done quicker. That's just a different methodology than we have. Um, but I see the players getting scammed too much. I just don't want to add to the angst that players have towards MMORPGs. And I think it's a viable way to do it. I think it's the honorable way to do it.
Have there been any other products that we can think of besides Albion Online that are successfully crowdfunded MMORPGs?
I
Shroud
want
of
to say
the Avatar was one, I think. Yeah,
Crowfall.
Crowfall. Yeah, that's
Crowfall's about to
launching.
launch on the 4th or the 5th,
We can't say
real
that's
soon.
successful yet, but it's definitely going to get launched.
I mean, they got players. You can play it right now if you're a
Mhm.
backer. It's
I
just
could
now they're
say
doing the official
right, and I could also say
launch.
the same thing about Shroud of the Avatar. Whether or not it's successful is
Mhm.
because when it launched, I went to the office when it had almost 40 people on the team, and within like 2 or 3 months after launch, they fired more than half the people. And then another couple months after that, they went remote and laid off like another third of the staff. And I think these days it only has a half a dozen people working on it. So yeah, there's enough people to keep it going with a skeleton crew. But I don't know that I would call it successful. But it did launch. So for all intents and
Mhm.
purposes, it is a launched MMORPG.
Mhm.
So that might be a
Right.
better criteria. How many MMORPGs have launched via crowdfunding?
Mhm.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, not enough to uh, warrant you spending your whole month salary on it. That's for sure.
Does
Uh,
Star Citizen count?
Hasn't launched yet.
no, hasn't launched. That's probably the big eyes. I got a bunch of money now. I'm gonna do everything I can now. Feature creep's gonna be everywhere. So,
Man, that money machine.
mhm. They're just gonna keep on doing
There,
that.
yeah, and that's the thing. There's not actually been that much because when we're talking about MMOs, their development time is minimum 2 years. and if we're talking about these Kickstarter games with all their stretch goals, they are at least like 4 or 5 development years
Mm.
following that. So we're just barely seeing some of them complete.
Yeah, I'm just doing a little bit of
Pathfinder,
research.
I think Pathfinder was the first successfully funded crowd-funded MMORPG, which was before Star Citizen. It still hasn't released. It's been in like a alpha state forever. Star Citizen still hasn't released. Those games have both been, they're both in the 9 to 10 year bracket, right? Because that was 2012. So we're
Mhm.
2021 now. So those are
Yeah.
both in the 9 to 10 year range. Then we have, then I think the
Is
next,
Pantheon?
which one?
Pantheon?
I was getting ready to say
Pantheon.
Pantheon.
Pantheon, thank you.
Pantheon started their Kickstarter in early 2014. They've still not released a product. Um,
Looks good
and
though.
Oh, you know who was technically successful? Project Gorgon.
so
Gorgon.
Project,
They failed their Kickstarter too,
well,
the
their
original
first one,
one.
their second one they did,
Yeah.
and they got like $60,000. They are actually, you're right. They are finally, I think, releasing the game later this year, if I'm not mistaken. But that's another one where that's a weird one because I think that one's been longer than 10 years, but
Yeah.
they didn't crowdfund it until it had already been in development for like 7 years, I think, because
Yeah.
it was a husband and wife team working on it in their spare time, and just got to the point where they were eventually like, hey, we need better graphics, and the only way we could get the money for that is to do a Kickstarter. So, okay, we've got on the big end, we've got Star Citizen, which I know they're not launched. I do think that what they have looks good. I've played it from time to time. I did back the Kickstarter for $40 back in the day. I don't follow it regularly. I do check their newsletters once every quarter. Um, Looks good. I'm interested. If it ever comes out, cool, but I'm not hanging on every update, and I'm certainly not looking at it as like the savior of the industry or anything like that. Pantheon I'm torn on because some of it looks good, but like almost every time there's an update that comes out, like a producer's update or a newsletter blast, it just seems like they're further and further from having anything. And like at the beginning of the year, they did a big announcement that they did a seven figure. I think it was December or January. They did a big announcement that they had just landed a 7 figure investment. So they got over $1 million basically, or at least a million. Um, and how this was going to help speed things along, and they brought new team members on and all this other stuff, and yet they're no closer to actually having anything ready. Camelot Unchained, slowly but surely, we're seeing things from them. But when we're talking about projects now that have been out, that have been crowdfunded, that are in 9, 10 years, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I mean, we're getting to the point where it's like shit or get off the pot. And I do blame crowdfunding for the moving goalposts, because when you have people who believe in you and they're willing to keep throwing money at you, you can keep changing things and moving that goalpost around and pushing things off here, and making this take a little bit longer. Whereas if you have those milestones that we were talking about earlier, where the money isn't given to you until you've completed the objectives that you said you were going to complete in the first place, there is an accountability there that means that you're forced to complete, and you can't let feature creep get in the way, because if you do, you don't get that payment. If you don't get that payment, the team doesn't get paid. If the team doesn't get paid, you're screwed. So I like that aspect of it. But I can also say that having worked on this from the other side of the fence with the Saga Leucemia with Stormhaven Studios, having done a blending of crowdfunding with investment, um, we definitely moved the goalposts multiple times. Not that I wanted to move the goalpost, but I was constantly, and this is part of the creative differences that come up in conversation from time to time. I was constantly butting heads with programmers who want to do things a certain way, and I'm trying to say we got to do things by a certain date, And when you have that crowdfunding element, um, people are less,
Mhm.
they don't want to be held accountable to milestones because they're like, well, the community's gonna forgive us. They're just let's take this time and do this way, and we'll spend another 3 months doing it. And it's like, by the third or fourth time you've done that, in my mind, you've lost the trust of your community members because you've now promised something 4 times and failed to deliver, and that's something that it doesn't sit well with me with a lot of these crowdfunded companies because I could point
Mhm.
to half a dozen companies right now that have in development products. We've mentioned several of them here already, where it's like they've promised alpha how many times, they've promised this how many times, and yet these things have yet to actually exist. They've never
Mhm.
actually been delivered. At what point do people get held accountable? And I think that's one of the interesting things about what's going on with crowdfunding right now is, especially if you're paying attention to the lawsuit that's going on with Chronicles of Illyria, and then what's going on with Apple versus Epic. Um, just a quick history lesson. If you go back far enough in time, at one point in time, the Wall Street wasn't um, regulated. It was the Wild West. And the reason it became regulated was because people started getting scammed and people started getting ripped off and people started losing money and people, company leaders did shitty things to get money from people and they got caught. And so the government stepped in and said, well, we're going to regulate that. We're going to regulate that. We're going to regulate this. We're going to implement the FTC. We're going to implement the SEC. We're going to implement rules and regulations for fraud. And what we're seeing right now with crowdfunding is it's still so new that we haven't seen crowdfunded be regulated yet. And I know that's one of the controversies, like Jesse was saying earlier. A lot of the One of the reasons that a lot of people don't like Kickstarter is because it's not regulated. There's
Mhm.
no checks and balances in place to keep people
Yeah.
honest when it comes to the money.
Well, the big thing for me is you can't invest. You can't be that VC. You're treated like a VC, but you're not going to get a VC. You're not going to be a venture capitalist. When you buy, put $1,000 into a game, you're not treated like a venture capitalist like you should be. Um, Things, crowdfunding sites like fig.io or fig.co, they help with that, and you can actually be that. With game funding, with crowdfunding, you just get a package of might get a game title or whatnot,
So I
but
got I got a question for you.
you don't see that cut.
How would you feel, and this is a theoretical question, how would you feel if you pre-ordered a collector's edition of a game that came with a signed book and a cloth map and it was sold for a specific product, and then that product, say a year or 2 years down the road, changed its name and changed everything about it? What do you think the repercussions for that are?
Oh man.
Because as a consumer in the United
Yeah,
States, there are consumer laws in place to protect people from that kind of stuff from happening.
that if it's a different name, it's technically a different product, and
Yeah.
I would want
So
an option for like a refund.
so this happened before. This happened before with let's see, Aria Legends of Aria. It used to be called Shrouds. Was it Shrouds Online or something like that? They promised a different style of game where you could play your own shards. And when that aspect was Shards Online was rechanged to what is it, Legends of Aria. So that actually happened. Can't remember if they actually what they actually did to. I don't know if they gave refunds for that or what actually happened, but it did happen before.
They probably did. I can imagine though, just a simple name change, most people won't be too angry about. But if it's like a whole completely different game, then yeah.
Well,
Well,
because
I'm sure the maps were probably different too because I don't know if they had maps though, but yeah,
this is one of those
shitty.
things. These things too, because I think it was today they announced Magic Legends, which was a horrible game. Magic the Gathering Legends was a horrible game. I did try the open beta, all of 15 minutes, decided it wasn't for me. It never even left open beta, and they've canceled it completely as of today. But kudos to them, they are actually offering refunds entirely for anyone who purchased the game or anyone who spent real life money in the cash shop to buy items, which I was very surprised and shocked by that. But this is also, we're talking about Cryptic Studios and Wizards of the Coast. So these are the companies that have millions of dollars at their disposal, and they can afford to do the right thing to avoid class action lawsuits taking place because they can actually afford to give the refunds and to give people their money back. Independent
They
studios, go ahead.
no, they kind of had to because the game's not even released yet. It's not even out of
Yes,
their beta.
yes,
And yeah, I tried it. It was Diablo-like, but not enough
right.
of like either being a full MMO or a full action game.
So
Yeah,
the
it looked good.
And I like Magic.
the
I
tricky
like
part,
some
yeah,
of
I,
what they
I
did.
like Magic too, but I couldn't. The game was not for me. Like I said, it was 15 minutes and I uninstalled it. I was like, nope, not for me. The tricky thing here, though, is that with a big company like that, they have the funds to offer refunds. With an independent studio, it's a lot trickier because these people are often operating with such a lower operating capital. They don't have enough money in the bank to do the refunds in that way. The unfortunate reality of that is that if you don't offer refunds in these types of scenarios, you do face legal consequences because if enough pissed off people rise up in arms and decide to do a class action lawsuit, like what they're doing with Chronicles of Illyria, you then face criminal charges for fraud because you didn't deliver what you said you were going to deliver, or you changed the name of it, or whatever the case might be. And then you're faced with this. This is where I'm talking about the Wild West. There's no regulations in place yet, but we're seeing consequences in the case of like Chronicles of Illyria, where enough people got together and said that we're not going to take that. That's BS. We want our money back. Soulbound Studios declined to give the money back, and so the people said, well, if you're not going to give our money back, then we're going to go to the state attorney general and we're going to launch a class action lawsuit against you because you have fraudulently taken our money and failed to deliver. You've completely changed the vision, completely changed the product, failed to deliver a product. So the crowdfunding, we talked about this on the Looking for More podcast a few weeks back, probably 5 or 6 weeks back. We were talking about the open nature of crowdfunding right now and how regulation is, it's literally just a matter of time at this point because we've seen so many scams and so many issues that have cropped up with companies taking money, failing to deliver, or taking money, delivering something different, um, taking money and disappearing, taking money and using the money for things that aren't related to game development. I'll never forget McQuaid taking a $50,000 check because he needed to pay medical bills, and it's like, so we all have bills to pay. Like that money was supposed to be used for game development. There was the one in Canada where the guys, one of the co-founders, dipped in and took money to build a house. Um, there's lots of horror stories of money not being used for game development. And I do think that, like you were saying, Jesse, the FIG option is one of the better ways to have checks and balances in place. Even though it's not necessarily regulation, it does establish those milestones that keeps people honest. Um, but I'm a big fan for regulating it because, unfortunately, we've seen too many people doing really scammy, shitty things with people's money and not getting away with it. Another This has not necessarily anything to do with crowdfunding in particular, but I was just reading the news um, in Europe. I can't remember which country it was. There was a company that was in crypto, and this is a heavily unregulated market, right? They were in crypto. They had a bunch of investors. The investors helped them build this company around crypto, and the two founders were early 20s, a pair of brothers, I believe. And one day they sent out an email to investors and said, "Hey, the company's going to be closing up shop. Sorry about that. Sucks, but hey, you understood the risks when you invested." And then they disappeared with literally hundreds of millions of dollars of crypto, and it disappeared from the company's wallets, and neither they nor the crypto can be found. And it's been this manhunt now for the past few weeks trying to find these two people who ran off with everybody's money. That's what happens in an unregulated market. Is that kind of shit can happen to anybody, because there's no regulations in place, and it's just like people are just allowed to do stupid stuff with their money. Which, hey, people should be able to do stupid stuff with their money. I like to drink expensive wine, which is not necessarily a wise use of my money, but it's tasty.
Yeah. Yeah, there is places that are reputable companies too that like Y Combinator, they're supposed to do background checks and all this stuff and I guess they even make mistakes like they got Dreamworld went through it. I guess they got funded with Y Combinator, the Dreamworld, but they ended up being this scam, like this large scam, and they're still asking for more money for things they will never deliver, like pets and cosmetics for things that aren't there. Um, so it's just amazing to me. Uh, Promising things that aren't real. We could go into sites like Earth 2. They're
I don't know
selling
what that is.
tiles.
Oh, is
They're
this the
selling
one that cropped up recently?
Is that
they're
the
selling Google Map tiles pretty much of like 10 by 10 slots, 10 by
but they
10
use
slots.
they use blockchain, right?
And
Is that what
yes,
they do? It's like on the
yeah,
blockchain.
yeah. So it's kind of like blockchain because they're kind of selling NFTs, pretty much.
That's it, yeah.
All it is an NFT block of a replica of Google Earth, and they're selling it to people, and people are just eating it up, and using it as like a real estate 2.0.
Well,
Um,
it's like buy a star or buy a piece of the moon,
yeah,
something
yeah.
like that.
Which,
Land on
by
the
the way,
moon.
I totally signed up for a seat on SpaceX's moon round the trip thing. Um, and my wife was like, "Why would you do that?" And I was like, "Why not? I mean, my chances of it are like 1 in 5 billion, but I would totally go." Um, but I didn't have to pay for it. I signed up for a free seat. I'm like, I'm not gonna pay $25 million or something like that. So I have to ask both of you though, what is there? I don't find anything compelling about buying a digital plot of Google Earth. Do either of you? I mean,
No,
Mm,
NFTs are dumb.
well, yeah. I mean, I can't really sell. I don't know enough about NFTs, but in that case scenario, that seems like m- the worst waste of my money I could ever see imaginable.
so I can't.
Uh,
I
Uh,
I
Go
do
ahead.
know enough about NFTs to know that they're dumb, and if you want, I can sell you this receipt that says you own this digital asset, and we'll file it over here. Anyway,
NFTs are interesting. On the Looking for More
yeah.
show a few weeks back, I linked an article. I don't have it in front of me right now, but it basically showed how NFTs blew up, and at one point had like it was like 12,000 wallets, and then within the matter of like 3 months had dropped to I think a little less than 3,000 people had wallets. Like the amount of wallets had dropped so dramatically that it was like it was this fad thing. And yes, there are still people doing NFTs, but it's, less than
the
3,000 wallets
the
compared to what it was.
the bubble already burst, yeah.
Yes, it was a very quick bubble. And the thing about NFTs is it's just not it's the same argument that I have about crypto in the sense the reason I won't put any money into crypto right now is because one man on this planet, one man can make a tweet and either blow up or he can either cause my crypto to blow up in a good way or he can cause my crypto to blow up in a bad way. And
Too much power.
I'm not going to put my money in a market that's volatile where one person can dictate what the market does. And that's how I feel about NFTs too, because it's such a new market. It's so unregulated that bad things can happen because of that. And so NFTs are just one of those things where I don't believe in it enough. It hasn't been around long enough to me to have faith in it. Now, even real currency has its issues, but at least those issues are somewhat tied to global events and are somewhat stable, unless you're talking about a country like, say, Argentina, where they're having major issues with inflation and other issues. But that's an outlier in the sense that most of us who play video games, and I'm being very first world elitist when I say this. Those of us who live in first world or developed countries tend to have disposable income and reasonably stable um, economies, and so that kind of volatility doesn't affect us so much, which is why it's so important when it comes to crowdfunding. I am bringing this back around to crowdfunding, I promise. It's so important in terms of protecting your investments, and crowdfunding a game is not an investment. You are pre-ordering a product. That's all you're doing. And it's
It's a
just
pre-order with even less protections than like a
thank you.
regular
I'm glad
regular
you
pre-order.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you mentioned that.
Unless you're on fig.co, then you could actually
Man, you're really
invest in.
pushing that fig.
I
Fig
think it's
is
great. It's great, man. I think it's the best legitimate way to crowdfund. I don't know why other companies aren't doing it.
well,
I could
it's
tell you
not
why they're not
even
doing it.
normal crowdfunding. It is investing.
Yes,
It's got its own investing
and I
terms.
can tell you why not everyone is doing it.
Let's free money. Let's get the money right now.
No,
Yep, that's
it's
why.
because Fig has a board of directors who approve the projects that come through
Mm,
their doors. You can't not just any
bad
monkey with an
attitude.
idea
Yeah.
can throw something up on their platform. Whereas with Kickstarter,
Right.
anybody with an idea can throw something up there. But
Yeah.
they
Right.
filter the monkeys out at
Mm,
Fig, and they only let the actual good products get through the door. And
mm,
I think that's the big separating factor for me in terms of the
yeah.
legitimacy
They
of
do that. Yeah.
products.
It's curated, yeah.
Yeah. And they also
And
go ahead.
it is since since I think they classify it as investing, it is
Yes.
way more regulated
Yes, it's
than
extremely
Kickstarter
regulated.
is. So
Yes. Yes, because
That's
they're
right.
so we're
actually
talking like
investors.
yeah. So you get all those legal protections compared to maybe pre-order.
Pre-orders, having done pre-orders for my own product, pre-orders carry a certain amount of, yeah, there's legal loopholes that you have to jump through. Not legal loopholes, legal hoops that you have to jump through. Loopholes are the bad things. They're not bad things, but they're things that you don't necessarily want everybody knowing about. But you do have to jump through certain hoops to be able to classify your product as a pre-order. As an example, having done this because we did everything as pre-orders, um, in order to sell your product as a pre-order on PayPal, you must deliver something to the customer within a 30-day time period of them purchasing. So even if your product's not going to be finished until 2025, you must give them a deliverable within 30 days of taking their money from them, which is why it's so important to have a prototype that you can deliver to the customer, because then you have satisfied your legal obligations of providing them with a product for their money. However, it can still be argued in court that that product is not an actual finished product until it has achieved all of the objectives that you promised when you sold them that item. And that's very important when it comes to these class action lawsuits that are being brought up against companies who are doing shady shit, because they're coming up against these situations where people are saying, but you didn't deliver on these 15 different things that you said you were going to do. You didn't do any of those things. Um, that's the risky thing with crowdfunding right now. I still do crowdfund. I'm curious to hear from the two of you. I do not crowdfund MMORPGs, which sounds weird considering I was behind an MMORPG for basically 7 years. But I will not crowdfund MMORPGs. Knowing what I know now, they're too big. There's too much that goes into them. I just don't. Even if they have a prototype, I have yet to back an MMORPG since Star Citizen, which was 2012. I have not backed. Lie. Hang on, I take that back. I did do. It's a science fiction game called. Crap. It's a. They just did like beta recently. It's a European company. It's like a Minecraft in space, and I'm completely blanking on what it's called right now. Dual Universe, I think is what it's called. I did give them money, but I didn't give them money until they reached open beta and they dropped the NDA. And I saw all the streamers on Twitch and everybody on YouTube and everybody else doing it, and I went, that looks interesting. And they don't really have a pre-order per se. It's just you pay a monthly subscription and you get access to the game for that monthly subscription. But when you turn off your monthly subscription, you no longer have access to the game. But it's a very low monthly subscription. It was like, I don't know, $10 or something. Um, I think that's the only game I've actually pre-ordered that's an MMORPG since Star Citizen. There's just I can't buy into it.
I was gonna say no. I haven't in a long time, but I actually have. I completely forgot. I've backed the Wagadu Chronicles, that African MMO.
I don't know anything about that. What's it called?
Oh, it's called the Wagadu Chronicles, Afro Fantasy MMO.
Yeah,
Uh,
it was already backed by Riot Games. I don't know why they were on
yeah,
the
they
game.
got well, I mean,
Yeah,
Kickstarter's marketing, part of the marketing campaign.
yeah. So
Yeah, so
oh,
some people I know it looks cool. It's different. Same with I didn't back it, but Book of Tales, I think it's called, is that other like very different
I've
style
been
MMO.
hesitantly optimistic. I haven't given them any money, but the Book of Tales or
Same.
whatever it's called, it looks so different
Yeah.
that it's at least intriguing to me. Um, but I didn't give them money because it was like they didn't have enough on the Kickstarter for me to go, oh, I absolutely have to have this. I can't, which is weird because I will back the shit out of like single player point and click games and tabletop games, but I won't with MMORPGs. And I think it's because, from my perspective, I know what goes into an MMORPG. And so I'm terrified that the people who are making these games can't ever actually get it to the finish line. So I'm like, I'm more than happy to support you emotionally. And if you can prove to me that you've got a product that's worth buying into, then but very few products have actually done that for me. Whereas with these little point and click games, that they're only asking me for $15, I'm like, it's it's a single player point and click. It's two guys, husband and wife, whatever the case may be. It's going to be out in a year. They've already put 4 years into it. That's realistic to me. Um, Tabletop games are easy because a lot of it's digital with PDFs and stuff, and it doesn't take anything other than time to produce a PDF. Um, I also
Yeah,
have
and
a
and the nice thing with tabletop is that most of them are pretty much done. They just need production and maybe some art.
I had a hard time too with Ashes of Creation recently because as cool as everything looks, and they've definitely leaps and bounds and everything else, when they opened up their recent store again, like I think it was last month, I was somewhat intrigued and I was like, maybe I'll do this. And then it was like $500 to get into the alpha, and it's like, yeah, no, sorry, I'm not giving you $500 just so that I can join your alpha. It's like I'll wait until you have a finished product at this point. If you can give me
I
something,
think,
go ahead.
sorry, I think that's also part of like the gating. They don't want too many people trying to rush the beginning too.
mm,
Like they're
yeah.
setting up that experience of like only if you're heavily invested, and then later they're gonna peel back the gates until it's ready.
I feel the same way
So
about Pantheon too, because they have their VIP is
yeah,
$1,000 to get into their alpha, and it's just like I don't have. You haven't shown me enough to make me want to give you $1,000. If I give you $1,000, I want to invest in your product. I don't want to. I'm not giving you $1,000 to play your video game, and the reason for that is because I know that the average MMORPG player has a lifetime value of $225. So anytime you're trying to sell me a package for your game that costs more than $225, you're trying to rickroll me for money, and I'm not having any of it. So
That might be an old study. You might need to look at that again.
no, it's
It
pretty
might.
relevant.
When's the last time you did that?
the average.
About 2 years ago,
2 years ago. I bet it's been up. I bet it's up.
I'd be
Average
surprised.
or median.
That's the average. The
Oh, okay.
average lifetime value of an MMORPG player is
Mm.
$225, which
Mm.
is combining purchases with monthly subscriptions.
I kind of
Um,
like the gating. I kind of like the gating, but I think it's it seems a little dishonest.
It is it
You
is
could you
pretty
could
high,
do
but I'm sure
you could
that
probably
that's why it's so high.
you could probably gate it for I don't know how high your gate needs to be, but you could probably do it different ways, like just you know finding your most active players on your forum or people that interact in your forums or Discord. Um, but yeah, I totally get it. You want to monetize that if you can, I guess. Um, that's the business part of the development, I guess. It's a cruel world. But yeah, every time I see like $500 for a video game, I'm like, ugh, it hurts.
I've
I
never
won't do
spent
it.
that much on one game, no.
Yeah.
I have spent $300 ish on collector's editions in the past. Like I bought 2 copies of the Vanguard Collector's Edition, which I think at the time was like $250 per, so that was $500 for my ex-partner and I. I think that was the most expensive time I ever bought like a pre-order for something. Um, but I can't
Lord of the Rings had a
for
lifetime subscription.
220
That was
bucks.
yeah,
Yeah,
about
I
200, 250.
yeah, I know a bunch of friends that got on that. That seems legit. I would definitely do that. Um, if it was a lifetime, but now they're free to play, so I kind of lost it. Kind of lost it now. So
Well, they give perks if you're a
Yes,
lifetime
if you're a lifetimer,
subscriber,
you do get
even if it's free
you
to play
get
now.
you get a ton of monthly points, monthly Lotro points, which these days are worth, the amount. I think it comes out to $15-20 a month worth of coins that you get for being a lifetime subscriber. So there are perks to that. But at the time, we did a case study on this years ago. That was one of the reasons they had to go free to play when they did, was because they ended up losing out on, it's been so long since I did that, but I think they lost out on $750,000 worth of revenue. If I'm remembering, this has been a long time ago. It was like $750,000 worth of revenue over a three
really,
month period of time because they gave away all those $200 subscriptions. And so all of a sudden they had all this revenue because once people hit like the 2 year mark. I'd have to do the math again, but it's like once people hit the 2 year mark, they'd already paid their $220 out in monthly subscriptions. And so anything after the 2 year mark, they were getting to play that game for free. And they had like something like 75% of their player base at that point was getting to play the game for free. And it's like at
mhm,
that point, you kind of shot yourself in the foot with this really cool idea where everyone bought into it and you made a bunch of upfront money, but then on the back end, you ended up losing out because you weren't generating any additional revenue for your game, and that's when they had no choice but to go to the cash shop because you
mhm.
got to make money somehow. Um,
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I've been backing a lot of games. I've backed 100 like 100 different games, at least. Nothing too crazy like $1,000 or nothing like that. But I do like to do. This is what I like to do. I like to do like the Patreon stuff. I think that's great. I like the monthly subscription. You get like some head starts, and see what's going on in development. I think that's a pretty cool avenue to do your crowdfunding as well. I know it's not as visible as Kickstarter, but it's definitely I think it's definitely growing. I know some other sites like Kofi, goes it Coffee or Kofi?
Oh,
Uh,
coffee, yeah.
yeah, they do the same kind of thing in crowdfunding, like monthly subscriptions. That's kind of neat. I wish it was I wish it was bigger. I don't see a lot
there
of people using it. There's
there
some
are
people that
more.
do really well.
Yeah, there are some people. That's the reason. Since you mentioned it, I will chime in on that one. The reason that my brother and I decided to use Patreon for our current project is because when we looked at how we wanted to monetize moving forward, we didn't want to sell pre-orders like we did with Saga of Lucemia, and we knew that we didn't necessarily want to do crowdfunding. But we wanted an option there for our hardcore supporters to be able to come in and get access to behind the scenes stuff. So then I started doing some research, and you're right, there's not a lot of companies. When I initially did the research early 2021, I think there was like 3 or 4 game studios that were doing it. Now there's probably 20. It's still not a big thing, but there are some small studios that have started to pick up on doing it through Patreon. Um, there are a couple of examples where you've got people that do it, but the ones that I'm seeing that are having the most success are these people who are doing their tabletop campaigns. Like DM Dave, I think is one of them. I mean, he's got like $25,000 a month of revenue coming in from supporters who buy his. They do multiple things though. They're doing the modules every month. They do a monthly like D&D magazine that comes out that has short stories and stuff in it. So they have a whole, and they have a team of people that are working. It's not just one dude. It's a team of I think like 6 or 8 people who are doing that. And I found another group who did. They got famous doing a live stream version of their D&D campaign on YouTube, and then they translated that into a Patreon. Um, there's a lot of crafters that I see using, but game studios not so many. But I do love Patreon because we are entering into the creator economy these years. I mean, the last couple of years in particular,
Right,
but
right.
especially with the pandemic, where
Mm.
people have the direct control, especially with what I'm seeing on TikTok. I follow a lot of different artists on TikTok who are doing things like miniature painting, miniature creation for D&D campaigns. This one girl does like pagan crafting stuff. So she like goes out and finds skulls in the forest and like takes them home and pressure washes them and then cuts them up and makes runes and bone runes and stuff. And she paints like Nordic stuff on leather
Yeah.
and these people are all doing stuff through Patreon, and I think it's a very creative way to. You're not at that point. I don't think you're necessarily selling a product per se. You're more like charging access to support the creation of whatever it is that you're doing. And the way that we've done it is that we have built in if you've subscribed for X amount of months, you get this product when it's ready. If you subscribe for X amount of months, you get this product when it's ready. That's a way to do it. And then, of course, once you have the product out, then you have to revamp the tiers because now you're doing something different because the product is already available. But I think I like Patreon more than anything else, even though it lacks the visibility. Um,
Right. They have a long way to go because they charge a lot of money.
they do.
They charge a lot of money to be on their to access their platform, and they don't really give you a lot of uh, publicity. And I think
They
it's
don't give you
probably
any
a
publicity.
downfall. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
No, I don't
You
think any. Do you find anything through their search
no,
it
no.
is
portal?
probably the worst.
You have to
Um,
manually search for things. It's very
mm,
much that platform is very much about you bring your community to there and monetize it through there. They don't do any marketing or publicity for you.
yeah.
It's all about you doing it all on your own, and that's a downside for
So
some people.
mhm.
I don't
so
have a
that
problem with it, but that's because I like to
Yeah, so
market.
there's
So
different tiers. I mean, there's different tiers that you can get. They're supposed to be one's supposed to be better than the other. I
yeah, but the pro
I've
tier is
yet
expensive.
I'm grandfathered in to their tiers.
I'm
yeah.
Not that
grandfathered
I
into the
use.
pro tier, but I'm not grandfathered into the subscription tier, which is the next one up where I can have team members and stuff. But I have been on there long
Um,
enough. I've been on there long enough now. I think I've been on there since like 2000. I don't even know.
I tried it
14.
out and I explored it, but it didn't fit the style that I'm trying to do
My
for
wife and I
digital
had it for
element.
our travel blog when it first launched, and we had
Yeah, so
a few hundred
so
dollars
if
of
any
supporters.
if anybody from Patreon's listening, do better because I mean that stuff. I mean, if you're gonna have pro tier, you better be advertising us all over the place. If we are paying that monthly fee.
The only thing the pro tier even gives you at that point, because you're not necessarily paying for the tier. They take a bigger percentage, is what
Mhm.
they do with the pro tier. But all they give you is you can have team members who can then write posts and see posts and things of that nature, and also you get access to analytics, which you don't have with like what I have, which is the basic pro. I don't have the pro tier. I have I think it is called the pro tier, but it's not the pro tier. The pro tier is the one you that one I think it's like I want to say it's like
I thought
11,
I
11
thought
or
they used colors
15%.
or metals, wasn't it? I thought it was
I'd
like
have to
bronze,
look.
silver, gold.
It might be.
I don't know.
I'd have to look. But
So there is Kofi. I don't know how visible that is or if it's any different. Um,
They have some exploration, but it's usually like you people have links where it's like buy me a coffee, and then that's how they draw people into their profiles.
yeah. So I mean, those are valuable ways to do this, but it's not going to support your company. It's just going to give you a little bit of
They're like it's
boost every
kicks
month.
in that
Yeah,
case.
I think it depends. I do see some companies who are
yeah.
legitimately making.
What is that YouTuber that's they have a whole like they good morning, great day for fishing. What was that? The Viva La Dirt
Oh, Viva la
Dirt
Dirt League.
the Dirt League. Yeah, they do their stuff on Patreon, and they make like 30 grand a month. So I mean, there is people that do really good on that platform, but for smaller, it's tough to pay that pro fee.
You also have to look at what they're producing though too, because they're not just
Mm,
producing like one thing a week. They are
mm,
producing daily content. Um, they have a team now. Obviously, they've been doing it long enough. I've been following them since it was just the two guys way back when they were doing like stupid music videos. And then they eventually spun around to start doing like the NPC Epic NPC Man and the Pug B stuff. But back in the day, it was the two guys doing music videos, like music stupid parodies. So they've definitely worked their way up over the years. And the Patreon, I think, has only become a viable thing in the last like 3 or 4 years now for them.
mm,
But obviously, they did that. They did the successful crowdfunding campaign for their short film Balin's Route, which was actually a really good short film. I did watch it. I didn't back the Kickstarter, but I did watch the finished product, and it was. I mean, they did a very
pretty
good
good.
job. But I mean, they raised
Mm.
a few $100,000 with the Kickstarter campaign. But yeah, there
Yeah,
are
that was.
other options out there other than just
Mm.
Kickstarter or Fig if people want to get creative. But
Indiegogo. What's another one? Um, there's probably more out
There's
there.
probably more, but those are like
GoFundMe.
between Kickstarter. Oh yeah,
GoFund, yeah, GoFundMe is
general.
more for like something that's don't they like do like tragedies? I think
Yeah,
that's
that's
one.
usually like just donation.
That's more like pay
Yeah,
my legal fees and pay for my dad's
yeah,
funeral and that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Um, I think
Oh,
Indiegogo. The only difference between Indiegogo and Kickstarter is with Indiegogo you can do the flex campaigns, which allow you to keep whatever it is that you earn even if you don't meet your target goal, but Indiegogo takes a bigger chunk of the flex fee than they do if you hit your goal and you do a fixed amount. Um, but it's an option for people who can't make it on Kickstarter. That's literally what it is. It's an option for people who can't make it on Kickstarter, so they take it to Indiegogo because then they can still get something. Project Organ did that, by the way. Their first one, they failed on Kickstarter, so they took it to Indiegogo, and they were still able to get something. Um, and then they used that to make things better, and then they went back and did another Kickstarter, and then got that other Kickstarter.
yeah, they were
Um,
lucky.
They're an interesting case study for that. Yeah.
they are because their game is not something that I will ever play. I've tried it multiple times, and I just can never get past the clunky nature of things and the bad graphics.
See, and that's what makes it endearing to me. It's like, oh yes, it's got some weird graphics. Oh, and I
Become a
can use
cow.
mushrooms as an attack. Oh yeah, and where cow.
Yeah, I can get turned into a cow and wear cow and wear deer and wear pig. Um,
Yeah, and that's the thing. It just embraces the
the
its
weirdness.
oddness. Yeah, that makes it
The
unique.
first time I played that game was 2014, I think, when all it was the starter island, the starter cave, and like the starter island. That was it. And I remember logging into the cave and just being like, "This is really not for me."
I got stuck in the cave too.
It was
It wasn't
pretty bare
until
bones.
it wasn't even until like a few years later that I tried it again. It was like, and they changed it to a starting island,
Yeah,
which feels so much better.
Better, yeah. I've seen the YouTube on the starting island. I just couldn't get the box that comes up.
yeah,
There's
it's
like
really
this
annoying.
dialogue, and I'm like, I could like 5 minutes, I'd be done with that because I saw a stream with that, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
doing that.
that box is really annoying, especially when you're doing loot and stuff in
And I,
dungeons.
yeah, a box. I was like, out, I'm out. I'm not doing that. Um, but yeah, I mean, they have good game design. I hear it's
That they
great.
do. That's the
Uh,
one thing they have going for them is they have some amazing mechanics. The leveling system is really cool. The progression system. I played for like a month with the guys from Battle Axe Theater at one point because they were doing a whole video series on it. So I joined them for the recording of all their sessions. And so we were playing, I don't remember, 2 or 3 nights a week. Um,
Mm.
and the one thing I remember is like to get to like I wanted to get the Druid subclass. In order to do that, you had to level up Fire and Ice, and you had to get both Fire and Ice leveled up to a certain point before you could even talk to the NPC to unlock the Druid spells. And I was like, that progression system was really cool to me because it was like I felt like I had something to work for. But then there was the crafting was just like, nah, I didn't like the crafting at all. And the combat was just not. I didn't really enjoy the combat, but the progression system was fun. Um, but yeah, there was a lot lacking, at least for me personally.
Mm.
Um, they don't. I don't
But the
think they don't. I don't think they ever did any pre-orders or anything else. I think they only ever did up until the time they did Kickstarter. That was it. And then they eventually,
they
once they
have
did
a
Kickstarter, they went to
box
Steam.
box price. They went to a box price.
Right after they did the Kickstarter
Yeah.
and everything, they put it on Steam and they have a box price. Since then, they've had a box price.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I did I do appreciate how they did their Kickstarter though. I mean, fail, try hard, try harder. You know, don't give up. I think that's the way to do it. That's a perfect case study.
Would either of you do Kickstarter for your games?
Yeah, for
No.
only for if I was ready to release, only for sales.
Marketing
Like
campaign?
you could get it on there like in a month we're gonna release it. You can pre-order it right now. That'd be the only way I would do a Kickstarter. I wouldn't
Yeah.
do it for funding. I wouldn't do it for funding. I do it for sales.
No, MMOs are too big.
Hmm.
Like there's Kickstarter goals are likely will be fully funded for the game or for what the product to be finished. There's no way for MMOs. There's no way for most large games to fit. Like odds are for like 3 million more.
Right. I think for me, I'm gonna repeat myself, but if I was ready to go, and this game's gonna go no matter what, and then I might sell like a companion or something that goes along with it, maybe something like that. But that game is gonna come close to being done because you get so much flack being on Kickstarter, and if it doesn't get, if it doesn't turn out right, it's worse to be on Kickstarter than than not. So I mean, come on, man, you really need to have your P's and Q's in a row before you go on Kickstarter. Um, and a lot of these people that just have an idea, sorry for you, but I mean, your game's not gonna pan out if there's no checks and balances.
Yeah. By the way, did we lose Cookie?
I think so. He's got a good smile going, and he's just stuck there.
He got pretty garbled there for a minute, and then
Yeah, that's why I repeated myself because I didn't know what the heck he was saying. But I mean, I understand Kickstarter is good for some things, but lately it's not good for MMORPGs. So unless they get their act together.
I think in the current climate,
Mm,
when I'll repeat myself here though, in the current climate, there's not an MMORPG out there that can convince me to give them money
mm,
through crowdfunding. Um, I'm more than happy, and I do this a lot. I pre-order a lot of games, but I pre-order games that are like 2 months out. There he is. He's back. Well, you don't have audio now, but
Yeah, I'm
there you
back.
go.
Looks like I lost internet connection for a moment.
It's all good. I mean, I do pre-order games, but I usually pre-order them when I know they're like 2 months out from being released. They've already done like they're like in open beta and they're just getting ready to come out the door. A good example of this, I haven't actually pulled the trigger on it yet, but I'm about to, which is the Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, which is coming out in September. And the only reason I would even consider giving them money is because they've already launched a product that I loved. The first Pathfinder Kingmaker game was amazing, and they've just they crushed the Kickstarter, and they've already proven they can do it, and they've been dominating their marketing campaign. Um, but it's even hit and miss with AAA companies because I pre-ordered um, Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance and have been not it's been a bit of a disappointment for a $40 title. I've not enjoyed that as, and there are some good parts of that game, but there's also a lot that it wasn't ready for launch yet. So even companies with big budgets can get it wrong, which makes it even more challenging for little independent companies to need to get it right if you want to be able to get people to trust you enough to give you money. You have to be flawless in your execution, flawless in your ideas, um, and you have to be able to prove that you can actually pull it off. Um,
And you gotta show your enthusiasm too, not just a sob story about you don't have any money in the pandemic and your wife left you and your dog's dying of you know glaucoma. But the thing is you need to have that set goals of what you're going to be doing and have that lined out. So I don't see that in a lot of Kickstarters.
Yeah, I'm not touching that Dark Alliance game because I have too much nostalgia for the originals too. It's like if you're going for nostalgia, it's got to be good to match up.
it's there are moments that are fun, but there's a lot that's not fun, and it's unfortunate because I wanted to love it and just not there. So even big companies, like I said, even big companies can swing and miss sometimes. So it's crucial for the
Mm,
little guys to do it right. So
mhm.
neither one of you guys doing Kickstarter, um,
Unless we're on next,
unless it was for
it's just
like a marketing push.
yeah.
It's marketing, yeah.
I think that's the only smart way to do it these days.
Mm.
There's two.
So there's, I mean, we can't, the elephant in the room. There's always publishers that you go with, or other avenues to fund your game. So there's some reputable publishers out there. You got to find them though. So and you got to pitch to them, and you got to be respectful and have a game ready. But yeah, there's also that avenue too.
And
Yeah, again, you
publishing,
have to know some business for that.
yes.
Be
I would
organized.
actually, that would be a fun episode one night to talk about publishing and pitching to publishers. Um,
Oh, the big thing is what is a good deal? That's what everybody asks. What's not a good
I
deal?
can tell you what's not a good deal is selling your IP to somebody.
Yeah.
You're never going to win when you give away your IP. Um, but um, I think on crowdfunding, we can probably go ahead and start wrapping up on the topic. Um, Kickstarter bad, Fig good. I think that even
No, I mean
pre-orders,
You could
it,
succeed if you're prepared. Don't be
mm,
scummy.
don't be scummy. That's probably the number one rule of thumb. Don't be scummy.
I mean you
Have
can
have a
you can
prototype.
you can succeed at all of them, but the thing is you have to. Um, I think it's more you care about your community more if you go on something like fig.co because they could actually they could actually be a venture capitalist in your development.
Could
I
benefit
respect
from
the
that.
player. I respect the player, is what I'm telling you. But yeah, that's it, man.
Don't be scummy, ladies and gentlemen. That's the takeaway from tonight's episode. Don't be
Mm,
scummy, and you should be able to make it happen.
mm.
Where can we
Be
find
genuine.
all of your guys' information? I'll be putting in the description text below, but just let us know.
www.defendthenightgame.com and also on Twitter at defendthenight.
www.twokinds.online. We can also be found on Steam, so please wishlist. I need those wish lists. Thank you very much.
Give them the wish list, ladies and gentlemen. It's what everybody needs. Thanks for
Oh,
following along. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icons to get future updates in the Mondays in MMORPG series. And of course, don't forget to go back and check the playlist so that you can see other episodes that you might have missed. Judah was on before. I don't even remember what we talked about when you were on before, um, but it was a good episode, so I'm sure
I had to look it up. I forgot to.
I would have to look it up because I've done so many since then. So check out the playlist, everybody, and we will see everybody in the next episode.
see you guys later.
Bye bye.